One of the things that is so remarkable about our tradition, we, the people of the book, is that we tend, not all the time, but for the most part, we tend to be more interested in the questions and the conversation than the answer. There are some times when we need the answer, but for the most part, the history and legacy of the Jewish people, hey Diane, hi. The history and the legacy of our people is about the conversation that we have. It's about how we meander and make our way there. And because of that, it means that we can argue a lot of sides. It's not always clear what the one answer is. We can hold, as we talked about over these high holy days, we can hold lots of answers. And because of that, I want to share with you a text that I'm pretty sure I shared with you already. I think I shared it last spring, and I'm pretty sure that when I did that, I used one of the Elkins as a prop, but I don't remember which Elkin it was. It was you? I thought it, okay, great. It was Naomi. It comes from, well, in part, it talks about this week's Torah portion. There are some rabbis sitting around, as rabbis do, talking about Torah, as rabbis do, wondering what is the most important line of Torah. It's kind of a fake question. It doesn't really matter what the most important line of Torah is. But they like to argue for the sake of the argue. They like to discuss and weave and meander, which is another plug. If you are available on Thursdays at 11 o'clock, come join us in the chapel for the Talmud class, where we'll meander and not find answers together. So as they meander and wonder and argue, Rabbi Akiva says, Ve'hafta l'reacha kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the most important line of Torah. And usually he wins. He's the one we tend to cite the most often. It's a good line of Torah. It tells us it's not just an idea, it's an obligation. It's a thing that we have to do. We have to actively figure out what it means to enact love for the person who lives next door, to want for them what they want for themselves, to know that even though we may face suffering and hardship, that we too are made in God's image, and because we are worthy of love, the person next to us is worthy of love. It's a good text, Rabbi Akiva. There are risks of that text. Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, one could say, my neighbor are just the people who live next door to me, not the people who live in the next town over. I'll narrow my scope for who I'm responsible to love. That's not the way we tend to read it as a Jewish people. It's not the way our sages of old read it, but we like the words, so you could read it with that narrow scope. And there's another rabbi who comes, whose name I've just forgotten, but it's okay. You'll trust me. Tarfon. I think it's Tarfon. I'll say Tarfon, and you will forget to check on Safari or whatever other website later, and you'll just believe me that it's true. Have I told you this secret? When a rabbi says, the rabbis say, what it means is that the rabbi can't remember the citation. So, the rabbis say, another important line of Torah is Ze Sefer Toldot Adam. This is the story of the generations of Adam. Comes from the beginning, comes from Bereshit, from Genesis, where we sit right now at the beginning of the book. That rabbi, whoever he might be, maybe Tarfon, maybe somebody else, he insists on a universal vision. He says we have to see this book, this story that we receive, not just as ours, but a universal call. This story that we inherit is a human story. These are the generations of Adam. All of us descend from that one person. And I shared this a little bit on Simchat Torah on Wednesday morning. It's tricky for us. And Charlotte, we're going to talk about this in a couple weeks in confirmation, so get ready. It's tricky for us that the most important moments in Torah are the ones that might be the hardest to believe with like fact brain. The sea splitting? Some voice from atop of a mountain giving us rules? Making the world in 7 days? Those are the core. You're invited back. Good job. Those are the core ideas. That's the core of our liturgy. And that's the stuff that's hardest when we have our science and fact brain turned on. And we come here, we're not asked to turn that part of ourselves off, but rather to be willing to look at these core moments with a grander, larger vision. That what is God? God is the one who will step in to change the laws of nature to insist on a world of wholeness and justice and peace. Who are we? We are people who collectively receive a mission and a purpose. And creation in a world that is tohu vavohu, that is mixed up chaos, maybe there's a vision of order and structure if we're willing to dig and look for it. And that that creation, that who we are, that the world that we exist in is tov, is good. I don't know if God made the world in 6 days, but I do know that I can find structure and order when I look for it. I do know that I can see goodness in human beings and in the created world. And I do know that this idea that humanity started from just Adam, which doesn't mean some guy, it just means person who comes out of the earth, comes from the Adamah, from the clay of the earth, that's the first one. And all of us descend from that one. We didn't start with 27 people that just kind of came out of nowhere. Start with one. I'm not asking you to turn off your science brain, not asking you to pretend evolution doesn't exist. I'm not asking you to throw Darwin out the window. But the idea that all of us are one human family, that is a good idea. And then in the Midrash, which is a collection of texts that come from the 8th or 9th century for Bereshit Rabbah, they dissect and wonder about the stories and the language of Torah. And they say, why did God make just one person? So no one could say, my ancestor is better than yours. And then it goes on to say that what is God? When a normal minter takes their minting stamp to make coins, every single one is the same. But when God stamps each human being with the same stamp, all of us are stamped with something sacred, but all of us are different. That's a good idea. That's worth wondering about, wondering what are the implications of that idea. Akiva told us, here's the thing you have to do. This other rabbi, he asked us to think a new thought, to wonder about the implications of what it means for all of us to descend from one person, for all of us to be cousins. A neighbor, I can argue with and not like and build a big fence with. But my cousins, I still have to go to the family reunion. We still have to share recipes and swap stories about who came before us. We're not allowed to just forget and give up. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes we have to distance, but there's always some string that binds and ties us together. If all of us are cousins, if all of us are one family, if all of us are different but stamped with something similar or something sacred, so during the High Holy Days, the podcasts I listen to are only sports because I need an escape. But now that the High Holy Days are over, I have to listen to like meaningful content again. So I'm listening more about the news. I'm listening more about the election, more about the nature of American civil society, and to feel how pulled apart we are. We're going to talk more about this as a community over the course of the year, but we do about feeling polarized and pulled apart from one another. But what if this idea is right? What if we're all one family and we can't give up on each other, we can't stop talking, we can't stop sharing meals together, we have to show up for the family reunion, put on the same silly t-shirt? What if we're just one family? What does that mean for what we do tomorrow? What does that mean for how we talk to each other in a month or 2 months or in 4 years? What does it mean for the way that love will manifest with our fellow? What's so nice about this argument is that they're both right. We need the conceptual framework. We need the idea that all of us are family. But it's not enough to just have the idea. We also need the commandment. We need the story and the law. We need the idea that holds us together, and then the thing we're supposed to do because we know that we're connected, because we're all human. The stories that we have, the texts that we have, the people of the book, the people who love discourse, who love to wonder and pull and tease and tug at our text, we're given an incredible gift. Hafochba v'hafochba kedechulaba. How's your Aramaic? No? All right. This is I know this guy's name because he's got a great name. His name is Rabbi Ben Bagbag. Rabbi Ben Bagbag. Turn it and turn it again, for everything is contained within it. On Wednesday night, in one breath, we ended Torah and began it again. We have to start all over. Because every time we come back to the story, we get to access something different, think a new thought, add something to the generations, millennia of discourse and history and conversation about our texts, so we can wonder how we can do a better job of loving one another, of feeling like a family, of not just thinking our ideas, but learning desperately how to live them. That's us. That's our job, our sacred obligation as we enter this new year. Aleinu. It's on us to take the history, the tradition, and then to live it.